Hello everyone, I'm here today with Tony Blake, where we're ready to continue our talks about Gurdjieff, J.G. Bennett and the work. And today we thought we'd go for the topic of the work after John Godolphin Bennett. So over to you, Tony, where would you like to start?
Well, I will start, I think, with Sherborne. Something interesting became fairly clear to me about Sherborne, which is an extraordinary experiment, which I think we talked about last time, this kind of thing. When the great man disappeared, died, and we have this situation of students still there in a course and some more to come. In fact, there were four, well, in fact there were 1.5 more courses to do. That we've faced the immediate question, do we just carry on? You know? And that brought something up which is very important, I think, because I remember talking particularly with Elizabeth about this, and we both tended to agree. We, in a sense, didn't know what we were doing, because in the previous era we've been carried along by JGB, by Mr. Bennett himself. He was setting the agenda and what should be done, should not be done, and all this sort of thing. And so what were the options? And it really then began to divide in a way which in principle it must divide. That is to say, one way you go just to carry on, repeat what was done before.
But do you think that's progressive to do that?
No, I personally don't, but one can understand people who want to do that, because they say this has been tried and tested. A lot of people have got something out of it, and as I'm talking to you, I'm being more and more aware of some of the issues here. There's also the things which people could learn to do and show others, and that was very important, because it meant you had some kind of ostensible practices or ideas which you could learn. But, I mean, my whole feeling at the back of my mind was, okay, we could do this, and I used to see it in the years which came afterwards, people in groups talking about the ideas of showing an exercise, whatever it was. And I think this will still have this flavor of an imitation from outside, because it's like Mr. Bennett created a curriculum with certain content into it, and the sort of things people picked up on were things which they could learn to do and transmit to other people. So to repeat myself, it had that advantage, but the disadvantage was that that's what they're doing, repeating and never really discovering themselves. That was my attitude, and I felt then, and I think it still is, a minority attitude. That people think, well, if Mr. Bennett's worked out a good way of doing things, as we're beholden to copy it, to imitate it. And I thought, no. So the other direction was asking awkward questions or experimenting and the rest of it. And that's the sort of way I found myself going, because I never know whether it's been just a matter of temperament. You know, I just couldn't repeat or copy. I couldn't do the same thing again. I used to have this slogan, very strong slogan, never think the same thought twice. I thought, if you thought it, that's it. Why do you want to think it again? And I began to realize in myself, as well as in other people, the tendency is to do the opposite, to keep on thinking the same thought itself, because that gives you your identity and gives an assurance you know what to do. And I said, well, that's the devil.
So like thinking about a fault is not the same as pondering on a fault?
Oh, a fault. A mistake, an error, you mean?
Yeah. In
that particular example. No, I mean, pondering is, a lot of these words you get from Gurdjieff had, I think, very deep and subtle overtones, and whether it's imagined or not. I mean, so, as you know, for him, pondering was it's used, I think, to some degree in Beelzebub. And it meant this like giving weight to, and had this metaphor of weight and weighing something in oneself, and it was like a physical sense. So that kind of thing.
You were mentioning at the beginning about Elizabeth. Elizabeth was Mr. Bennett's wife. Was that correct?
Yes, that's right. And I think we were both like chalk and cheese, because in a way it's sort of very typical pattern. She was the wife of a very brilliant man. When he dies, the tendency is to keep hold of everything he did exactly as he did it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because if you're responsible for the heritage, or you know,
the legacy to carry it on.
You want to keep it pure and all that sort of thing, and I didn't have that attitude at all. So, but at the same time, we felt this. I still remember talking to her about the time we were thinking of selling the place to Beshara, this other institution connected with Ibn Arabi, which was originally just down the road. They wanted to buy Sherborne, they did eventually. We both, in this very strange, we both said we were like, I don't know, the metaphor came up, we were like church mice, you know, the place was poor as church mice. So we felt just like, you know, all the people around us were pontificating about high spirituality, but we weren't like that. There was something in what Bennett had left which was quite down to earth.
Mm.
You know, it wasn't highfalutin at all.
Well, Bennett himself didn't pontificate, did he?
Well, I don't think he did.
No, I didn't think he did. Okay, he wrote lots of books, but that's not pontificating. He didn't stand there giving lectures as such.
I think that's quite right. He didn't project himself through his writings, but it was just sort of reaching out to people and trying to say, look at this, look at this, look at that, and not, I am the authority, but just, you know, look what's, like Rumi was saying, look what's in my hands. Not at me, but what is in my hands, and he was like that. Yeah, so I don't think he pontificated, but it's quite an interesting strain in the Bennett line. It's still there, more or less, but it's a kind of feeling attitude, you know, behind the scenes is not explicit. But coming down to this, then I saw, you know, I think I might have mentioned last time, I got involved in fulfilling the 5-year cycle, and we had an extra summer school afterwards, which Bennett had said he would do this course for 5 years. And then he already had in sight setting up a community, which used to produce goose pimples on me or something. I was really appalled at the idea of a community. As you know, just before his death, he bought Claymont, and they're going, so I was involved after him, but going to Claymont, and you know, talking with the people there. Of course, poor people, they didn't know what to do really, and so they ended up inevitably as just doing an imitation of the Sherborne course. You know, there, so it was another stage of imitation, you know, which must have its value. And I tried to do something else, and that led me to a path of sort of almost like of chaos and uncertainty, and because there were no rules for it, and I didn't go away to join something else as such, except for one period, which was a mistake.
Can you tell us about that little mistake? Or is it?
In a while I will. Well, perhaps yes.
Was it because you were still looking for something and you felt you hadn't got it? You know, I know the Bennett's work wasn't the be-all and end-all for you.
Well, he said this exemplification produces, or made this I call it a demonstration of a kind of an approach, which he got accused of being, what's the word, eclectic, you know, not be able to make up his mind, but going from this to that, and then the other thing, a new thing came on the latest, you know, as if he was a butterfly, dancing with things and things like that. I thought that was probably unfair. But it was like he would come across new possibilities and new influence, and he had a capacity to learn himself, you see, and he thought he was ever looking for this, I call it emergent wholeness. It was always emerging for him in a new way. When he was very earnest, he threw himself into the latest escapade with great energy and vigor and commitment and so on. But then for a time, then it would be something else. So you could look at it and say, well, he was fickle, going for this and then going for that and then going for the other. But also you could see it as like, I don't know what's a good metaphor, is like
Well, it was like being a true seeker then, wasn't he?
A
Because
true
he's
seeker.
looking at all paths.
All paths, and having it seemed to come to him in a way which, how to say it, filled in more of the picture.
Mm.
Because he didn't assume he knew what the picture was, but it was like filling in more of the picture, like coming across, Shivapuri Baba, so you've got the Hindu side, and there's the side of meditation, which you really get, and then Hasan Shushud, a very different kind of Sufism than the ordinary, more devotional kind, and so on. But anyway, you have to be aware of his pathway, and I intercepted with him at a certain point, in the latter days of Subuh, and he's in the Catholic Church, and then afterwards against Shivapuri Baba and Idries Shah and all that kind of thing. So I was privy to all of that, so it kind of got into me, and I've written about it in my large article about all of this, which I must send you a copy, about that this was his, and I called it just now a demonstration of method, and it was a very interesting part of method for people who don't realize. It was it's like eating hazard, it's like these things came, out of the blue in some way, because I was dimly aware of this connectivity. Had a lot of people in the work rows had their ear open for different things happening, different new teachers coming on, different ideas coming in. So there was a lot of background stuff I really knew nothing about. So we learnt about people like the Shivapuri Baba and also Pak Subuh from somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody kind of thing. But it was when I call this eating, I don't know, it's got this picture of somebody going along a path, eating the path, or something. You know what it is. I like that. So I thought, with this coming on, so that led to the mistake after Bennett died. Of course, there was a power vacuum, authority vacuum, and so on. And this is particularly when, I supported Elizabeth to say after the prescribed period of courses finish, so many people were against that. We're getting all these students, it's doing fine, and actually behind the subjects we're getting in lots of money from all these people doing this kind of thing. Why are you stopping when you're on to a good thing? And I said, well, I agree with this, and now is the time to stop.
Because that was the time that Bennett had allocated to it.
Well,
before he died.
It's not only that, but I was very keenly aware myself of the sociological principle that if you set up an institution, the main purpose of the institution becomes the perpetuation of the institution. And no institution I know, hardly any, has ever stopped itself. The whole momentum is momentum. Carry on.
That's
Whatever
it.
you're doing, carry on.
The gyro must spin.
Yeah, gyro spin. You just you've got this wheel turning, and it's completely mechanical. And I thought, I don't want to do this, stop. And I think this principle of stop for me was always important. I mentioned last time, I can't remember, when with Bennett and had these yearly groups and so on. And one year I said, I'm fed up with this, I'm not going. But not because I knew what else to do, but I had to say no. People don't understand it. Saying no, which is called superficially negative, it's not really negative, it's opening to the unknown. You have to stop the familiar, and then you go through what comes. And it can be either black or white, good or ill, and this time it was a mixture, because this guy turned up out of the blue. It turned out to be an American self-appointed guru who was very gifted in many respects, a lot of insights and a tremendous amount of knowledge and certain powers, which eventually I thought he was using to exploit for sex and money and so on. But there was a period when engaging was so interesting, and it came at this point. What could happen after Mr. B? And he was a kind of prime candidate for something different, and he brought in this quite new dimension, for example, that Bennett, in spite of being so well read and educated and knew all this stuff, would always say to people, don't bother to read the books, which I thought was very two-faced of him, but that's what he would do. Because the implication was sort of behind the scenes that you can't deal with this stuff, but I can deal with it and I'll sort it out for you. I mean, that was the sort of implication behind it, which is really true in a way, because study.
But people could misunderstand that and think he was saying that to make him feel like seem higher than everybody else. If people misunderstood what he was saying.
But I think probably the misunderstanding was that you say, oh, the books have no value, you shouldn't read, and all this kind of stuff. So this whole line of study and this, and it was really interesting in the way how certain things were fulfilled. For me, I just add, Debbie, as I was looking at these patterns of fulfillment. At my age, I've got a time span which can see these sort of longer term cycles. And at Coombe Springs, Mr. Bennett had this wonderful idea of doing an encyclopedia of spirituality, which would be completely impartial, not just, he was insisting not just the Gurdjieff stuff, but he wanted to include Rudolf Steiner in particular, he loved Alice Bailey and all kinds of things. He said, which people could look up what to do, you know, how to meditate or work on the self, whatever it was. It would just be an encyclopedia, and I was so disappointed when it didn't work, and I wondered in retrospect because he didn't have the funds, but he also didn't have the support, didn't have the people. But then we eventually did something like this, and I'm sorry, apologize for dwelling on it because it's a fantastic interest to me how this mechanism works with this guy from America, because we eventually set up the Alexandria Library and produced a book which was unique, The Pilgrimage of Spiritual Reading. I don't know if you've ever seen it or know.
No, I've heard of the Alexandria Library though.
Oh. Well, it's not the ancient one.
No, not the ancient, it's like the publishing.
Well, yeah.
Yes.
Well, this covers really all branches of spirituality, and we just got together and we reviewed hundreds of books and put them together and compared them. So that's the nearest thing to Bennett's vision all those years ago.
Yes.
So there's a lot of, you know, pluses and reinforcements coming there. But we have this other side of, I think, of exploitation and megalomania, which rather spoil things. And
So like a dark side.
yes, you call it the dark side. But, well, accepting some of our judgment of what is light and what is dark can be pretty, you know, narrow-minded and all the rest of it. Certainly I felt it was the dark side. But he had a capacity for, you know, for incredible creative. He was extraordinarily creative, and he developed some quite new methods, which I really got value out of, including a method to do with, actually I think it was the nearest thing to a method of activating the higher mental center, based on humor.
Oh, Gurdjieff would have liked that, wouldn't
I
he?
think he would. It's extraordinary genius he invented all that. And you know, his powers, you know, with energies and use of music became in, all kinds of things. Well, anyway, that ran out. But you can see that we're looking for a pattern of, you know, that sense of almost believing that there was this pattern of discovery, a process. He wouldn't come to a stop and say, now we've got it, ever. It's not because one is just fickle or dissatisfied in an emotional way. It's just that process is righteous and organic, and I still think it's...
And ongoing. You never get to the end because it's always going to grow more and more and more and expand. Or
even if it's just like taking in some new food just to restorative or renewal or you know, whatever it is. There's some kind of dynamic life there, which I was looking for. But then, well, not to be too waffly about it, I began to look for two things. One was what sort of things was Bennett interested in, what I call his projects, which should be maintained. That was a part of Bennett's situation, that he had, as a writer of the dramatic universe, all these interests in physics and philosophy and so on, which most of the people around him in the groups had no connection with. You know, they show them an equation and they would faint.
can understand that.
You can understand.
Yes. Numbers, or my brain shut down.
Take that away, take this burden away from you. But all of that, and he has these specialized interests, you see, and he had to make something out of it. So he had, from this came all these projects, you know, and he actually, and this extraordinary thing which I mentioned last time too, about him announcing, learned how to communicate with higher intelligence. You see, imagine your geezer come around, okay, Debbie, I advise you to communicate with higher intelligence. You see, off you go.
Like, how? I wouldn't even know where to start.
I followed this up over the years, you know, it's like, but the phrase is like, it was like with Gurdjieff, with what he did in respects, everything he did was left almost incomplete, you know, wasn't put in the, wrapped up with a ribbon on it or anything like that. And it's going to, people ask him and say, well, you think, you know, go and do it for yourself. You do it for yourself, right, that was the thing. And that's connected, so, you know, again, it's a long process in which I produced my book, which I think is a very good book, The Gymnasium of Beliefs in Higher Intelligence. But it also brings into play something which comes from like my generation rather than Bennett's. Bennett was, how to say, he's a kind of watershed person between two worlds or two eras. He was very old-fashioned and very forward-looking at the same time, and he still had the, how to say, what I would call it, and you understand my language is crude here, I would call it a kind of tendency towards this kind of grandiose objectifying of things. So, but he would be, he's very convincing, you see, and we say, you know, talk about, you know, higher intelligence as if it was somebody next door, you know, to be simplistic about it. But me, you see, I would approach it in terms of what is, what's the phenomenology of it, what's the experience, what's the way in which there is this, we could say there is this working of a higher intelligence. So it's not like knowing that there is a higher intelligence and we can communicate with it, you know, as a thing out there, or as entity or a force, whatever it is like this. No. More personal of the modern age, later after the 20th century, where you see it's like the meaning of experience is what you make it. Now, without falling into the trap of saying it's all subjective, you can think what you like and feel well, and it's not like that. But you have to enter into the way you're shaping your world, you're languaging your world, and all of these sort of things became important to me, as he did with another of his, I think, very remarkable students, Bennett students, that's Henri Bortoft, who became renowned for, you know, for his work on Goethe. There are books on it, on what's called hermeneutics and phenomenology and all these long words and all the rest of it, and became a favorite at the Schumacher College, which was based on, you know, alternative thinking and holistic thinking, and he was major on that. And he, in a way, Henry had to divorce himself in a way from Bennett for a while, because psychologically this is very true. He couldn't develop his own way while he was in the shadow of Bennett. Bennett was too strong, and you have to do this, you have to, you know, separate and to do your own thing. In a way, having these strong influences on you is a disadvantage. You know, it may set you going, but then you need to sort of cut them off and go and dig your own patch.
So they can hold your hand up a few steps and then they let you go, and you have to climb the rest of the stairs yourself.
And for you, like Sinatra, do it your way.
Yes, I did it my way.
Because you've got to do it your way. You can't do anyway. This is a whole conundrum going back to this, you know, this legacy and the transmission and so on. You know, people, this horrible word "people," which means the ones I don't agree with, and I think are a bit more stupid than I am. It's a bit sad. Go on this way of looking for the tangible things which can be imitated. You see what I mean? It's always imitation, and in a way it's righteousness, or you learn basics, but beyond a certain point it's the trap, because the real thing is never by imitation.
Because if it's been done once, then the next person has to do it the new way, take the next step.
Never, you know, somebody has got to take the next. It's just, you know, it's in the nature of things, I think. Actually,
well, people want to be told how to do it, don't they?
Yeah.
And like, oh, if it worked like that for, you know, Joe Bloggs, then it'll work like that for me, and it doesn't. It's not like that at all.
No, it's not like that, is it?
If you copy somebody else, then it doesn't work out that way, and then you get disillusioned, and then most people would start putting down the person that they'd copied, saying, "Oh, it didn't really work for them," or they'd find some way of blaming them for it not working for themselves.
And I'd add in here too about that. You brought to mind about, you say, it's working or something, and we all got this idea of practices, we know, and methods and so on. But that's only at most half of the story, half of Bulmarchano. Because the other part is actually, and I was thinking when we were talking about, it's like to do with life, the process, the life of getting these things to work. See, because they in themselves are like nothing, they're a kind of abstraction. But it's how you get these things to work, which comes out of your own suffering, your own joys, your own relationships, and all the rest of it. And without that, the practice is
stagnant.
Stagnant, or say it's gutless, or
oh yes, okay.
You know what I mean? It's got no real oomph in it. Because whatever the oomph is, you've got to provide it yourself. So that's what I think there's a flaw of copying. But also, you see this problem if you get it's to do with numbers, and I want to have an element in this conversation about numbers, because numbers. I mean, not just numbers, you should probably know, but numbers of people, because you want to involve lots of people to make it important, whatever you're doing. If only a few of you, well, most of us tend to be a bit embarrassed and say, why we're a bit sitting on the ground here, what's wrong?
Yeah, is it not working? Are we not doing the right thing?
The right thing, all those people out there, they've got millions, coming along and doing these things, there's just something wrong with it. The numbers become important, but it's this question of if you don't go the way of imitation, then it becomes more a minority pursuit. Because, just statistically, very few people relatively are prepared to stick their neck out and go their own way. And whereby going their own way must insist is not a matter of being, just idiosyncratic or selfish or anything like that. It's doing your own way is a way which can enable you to appreciate other people's ways, because you've really gone through your experience, so you can empathize better with what other people go through, you see, this kind of thing. And that's something which maybe you can also, I think is important in the work, is to share with people who are not in the work at all, or just people. Well, you know what I mean by this? You must know in your life too, and you meet people and you get this contact with them, and it's like of this real same essence as the work, and you never want to talk to these people in terms of working on yourself or any kind of crap like that. It just all sensing, what are you going through? Well, this happened to me, and just this human thing.
Swapping experiences.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's for me a very big thing, and I'm just feel myself a child at it, beginner at it. I think this could be revolutionary. But anyway, so that's sort of minority pursuit, and so that's raised a problem, because with Miss Bennett again, he had this wish, this orientation. He wanted it to work for everybody. We wanted to make it very popular and available and so on, and that's what upset Jeanne de Salzmann. I think she didn't like that, and the French group didn't like that. And he had this passionate, I think he had this passionate socialism and democracy in him. And but he kept on coming across this partly expressed Gurdjieff's famous saying, if a man can make shoes, you can talk to him. But a man can't do anything.
He doesn't make anything.
He doesn't make anything. He has no basis for understanding. But Idries Shah brought something interesting in the picture. He talked about the would-be and should-be disciples. Do you ever come across that?
No, I'm not saying that. No, I haven't read all his work or watched all his shows.
He said there's would-be disciples are those who say, oh yes, I want to learn, I want to be in the work and so on. But they're not starting in the right place at all. And should-be disciples are those who have capacities, but are not attracted into the work at all. And you meet these people. You meet people who are very extraordinarily gifted, insightful and so on, but they don't want anything to do with the work You've not met those?
Yeah, I have actually. I know what you mean now. Yes, and they've gone off and done maybe things in other ways.
Yes.
But they seem to be able to make it happen. So they obviously had the will to do it, and somehow bring them.
Yes.
If we go through a Gurdjieff stage, of then 3 centres together to make themselves go forward in life, even though they haven't got into the Gurdjieff work or the Bennett work or anything,
any of
or
those sort of things.
Ouspensky,
Something which has come out of the response to need and need in the world, or in with children or people, or even a science, whatever it is. And they have this something. I don't know. I'm just waffling here, but concentrates. Like consciousness concentrates around that, and if they are, it's like you can be true to anything. Like William Blake. If a fool will persist in his folly, he may become wise. But you've got to see it through, and these people have seen it through anyway.
So it's the will. They're using their will.
I think so. But please don't use that phrase, using the will.
Using the will, or using their will.
No. This word I'm bridling about is using.
Oh, okay.
You cannot use will. Because why? Because will is what uses.
Oh, yes.
That's why it's called will. That's very important. It's like, I will now switch on my will. Anyway, this is going to get into a big topic, because that was Mr. Bennett's pièce de résistance, was the will, and the subtleties he wrote about that. And anyway, coming back to what happened afterwards, then there was, so that you see all these uncertainties, and I'm talking about my own, if you like, troubled mind, if you like, and my uncertainties. Where you could, which is, example about having this category of sort, we call it work, this label, and seeing what makes it anything work. And on reflection, I don't know if it was then back then, but I know it's now on reflection now. I say sort of because often, concretely, some authority figure has declared something as work. And because they've declared it as work, it is work. There isn't anything as such which is tangible, knowable, which is work at all. But someone has to bring in this meaning.
Like an authority over it, so that people, like an authority for people then to go, oh, that's the way.
That's the way. It's the same principle, in the church or whatever you like, whether you like it or not. It's like that. This has been declared, authentic. I say this because with this guy in America, we used to do things like play Risk and Cluedo.
The good old ball games of the old days.
And it would bloody work, I tell you. Did other things, which a lot of physical ordeals were in it, and that brought in that dimension, which was very partly unpleasant, but was missing, because the only time you had something like an ordeal before was in relation usually to the movements, the famous, arms out sideways. You've done that for periods.
No, I've not done the movements myself, but I've done Qigong and Tai Chi and things like that instead. But it's not the same, I know.
Something I had an interest when you do it, but it came out because that became just the arms out sideways, unwavering, sometimes to the point of its being excruciating, absolutely painful.
But he felt it was doing something, doing that exercise.
Well, you see, the arms out sideways comes from the Gurdjieff thing. Then it talks about his practice of it in Idiots in Paris. We had the seeing arms. It's a long time. It was like an hour staring at one spot in the wall, kind of thing.
Yeah, because Gurdjieff talks about that, but I thought it was arms in front.
No, arms out sideways.
Okay.
But I'll tell you about the arms in front in a minute, because that can get very, very hairy. And there was a time when Gurdjieff tried to dissuade Bennett from working so hard. I thought that's interesting, but because Bennett was like that, he was really go over the top about something and do it excessively, not intelligently, because he felt this was a security that he was doing it right, and instead of using, there's very subtle things to do with that, what is effort and super effort and so on. Anyway, arms out sideways. If you do it well, it depends on one's body and experience and so on. But a lot of people after 10 minutes begins to get painful. If you don't do it for half an hour, it can get extremely painful. But with that side, there's of course the only part of something called a physical ordeal. Now, with this guy from America who's teaching us all the various kinds of tradition, and he goes into the Ameridian tradition, which includes ordeals, physical ordeals, the sun dance with the hooks and the flesh and all this kind of thing, and you know, dancing for days without food and all this kind of thing, which is intrinsic to their culture. And so this American brought some of this in, but also it's interesting, he brought it partly from the Marines. There's a punishment method in the Marines which he used.
As in the American Navy Marines kind of exercise, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But so talk about being influenced, you know, as excruciating. Anyway, I'll tell you what the practice was that might amuse people, so people up to, because we had this bust of Gurdjieff. It was death mask, you know, it was about this big. We had to hold this out in front of us.
So arms stretched out in front, holding the death mask.
Yeah, but this is actually like holding out a rock. You see. And then there's very subtle exercises to do where the instruction was put your arms down when it is right to put them down.
So not when you want to, when it's right to.
No. It's very subtle. It really taught me a lot of things there. But it's just to say that side of ordeals wasn't known, and that, you know, in a way the side of study wasn't known. And so it was just like completing the colour circle. You see what I mean? It's all part of the investigation. But then I must have wanted to include other things, which was to do with, partly with that thing I don't think I explained very well about, you know, getting a way of dealing with things like questions of higher intelligence and so on, in what I call a modern phenomenological way, where you don't have to believe in this, but you have to go into your own process. That's the nearest I can get to it.
Because if you just believe in something, normally you don't take it any further, do you?
No, you don't. That's right. And that's right. And because you know, Debbie, for me, the whole miracle is about this. You know, like the whole task is to get into your own process, but it's very difficult to explain it, right? Because it's not like being wrapped up in oneself, but you know, this is, you know, this gift of this being incarnated, you know, with blood and all the rest of it, and this stuff going on, and you, and this is where the miracle is. I'm speaking, you know, and doing these simple things. This is incredible.
But you're living. You're alive. Living this moment.
Really living this moment. I love the description Bennett gave in the Radical Universe Volume 4. He's going through his version of human history, and he talks about some primitive hominid, the Australopithecine, and he said the first time one of them got conscious energy and went into ecstasy because he realized he was alive. It's stuck in my mind, you know. There's one, what an image, you know. Fuck!
Yeah, blew his brain.
Yeah. So, anyway, so then the other side coming into it about the other side, well, historically, of course, that Bennett died, and then of course they, not quite dropping like flies, but the golden oldies began to leave this mortal plane. And then you could see coming where there was this situation, because the whole regime had been based before on authority lineages. And
they was disappearing or dying out.
Yeah, the basis of these lineages was putting out. It wasn't going beyond, you know, I knew somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody who knew Gurdjieff. You know, what Shah called the soup of the soup of the soup. He was getting to run out. You know, he couldn't do beyond the third generation. The Gurdjieff was aware of this. So what did people do? Who was going to be the teacher? You see. And I think, well, can we face the issue there isn't going to be a teacher?
You've got to become the teachers of yourselves.
Well, to do something like that, but something like checks and balances, you do it to speak intersubjectively, not just doing it yourself in isolation, but how can you then interact with other people, which gives that benefit, which I saw a lot of people have seen very early on with Bennett and his approach about, and it's a key ingredient for me, having a diversity of people engaged in something where the diverse responses to this are part of the intelligence of the system. You see? Mm-hmm. They don't conform to one model, but the very thing which most people try to avoid, that's differences, you embrace, and that gives you can have a possibility of sharing in a mutual understanding, which is better than your own particular bit.
Mm-hmm.
That was
not one driven force, but many different forces coming together.
Yeah, and they can sort of like adjust each other, but also keeps you probably a bit more honest, and also against groupthink.
Against groupthink.
Yeah, because you value differences, and you see most groups, they do not value differences; they value agreements.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we all understand. We're all after the same thing. Haven't you heard these phrases?
Yes.
And I want to scream, no, we're not. Yeah.
But I think sometimes people disillusion themselves that everyone's on the same page as they are.
It's an illusion.
Yeah.
In fact, but the pretense of doing so is very then twice dysfunctional.
But isn't that the need to fit in with everybody else?
Yeah. And it's...
When really we're all outsiders.
And you know one person sticking the head above the parapet is liable to get shot.
Mm-hmm, yes.
How
dare you be different? How dare you try and change it?
Exactly. So there's all of that. So I thought, this has got to be just. That's why I became, to cut the long story short, interested in dialogue and these more other processes of people sharing together, which is against the mores, the ethos of the previous generation, because they're all about we are serious and we're talking about serious things and we have a leader who knows what they're doing, and I say, oh no we don't. So we're going to get together and don't know what we're doing, nobody's in charge. What's the point of this? And I know that I did experiments over the years, and that if you have just a purely unstructured group, you get conflict and chaos and this kind of thing, but you have to do it in a certain way. Now, what are the ways of doing it? And here I came back to, because Gurdjieff was so smart about everything, I think, he said, well, here we just create conditions for work, and this idea of creating conditions, I think was very, very important. And Bennett picked it up in the sense, he said, if you're involved with people and they're learning in whatever way, he said, never take the affirming role. Because he recognized that in practice this, how to say, runs down and gets fixed. That's two properties that they have. And they always tried to be open to taking the reconciling role in every kind of situation. It's the same, this is indirectness, not to say, get into a realm where you're just creating conditions for work and you're just leaving the people themselves to work. And this is particularly true in dialogue. I don't think you've been in a dialogue group with me. A lot of people hate it, like it recently in Italy with Margit, and she's saying, people wrote to her and said, if we're going to have dialogue, I'm not coming to the seminar.
So when you say dialogue, they're discussing, or you're giving them dialogue? Can you quickly explain what you mean? Just for the listeners?
It's funny, it is one of those things where it's the old saying, better experienced person, explanations afterwards. And my mentor used to do this. You go to a conference and so on and expect to be him to lecture on it. He said, no, let's put the chairs in a circle and start talking. Anyway, first of all, it's optimal in a size between something like 15 and 25 people. And that's to do with the statistics of diversity. And it is in a circle, and you get the sense of equality. And it is very highly structured in the sense you have precision of beginning and ending, and no indulgence into going on or anything like that. And why? Because this creates, a cooking pot, and there's a kind of enclosure which is not in ordinary life. And I usually then pronounce the primary task, the function of the group, is to learn how to talk together. And I added, of course, you believe you can do it anyway. And it's so interesting, you have a group and they're chatting away like crazy, and they say, so dialogue begin, silence reigns. Why? Because when you say dialogue begins, you're called upon implicitly to speak intentionally.
And then you start thinking, what's speaking intentionally?
And you go,
yeah. Everything seizes.
everything seizes
Your
up.
tongue, the cat's got your tongue.
And it's a very subtle thing how there are kind of guidelines where there are no rules. And it makes people very, very uncomfortable, but all the time in dialogue, if you get into it properly, and it's not so easy, you're like always on the edge. Because in front of you, do I speak, do I not speak? What do I say, what do I not say? What's my reaction to that person? And
Sounds very intense.
Oh, it can be very intense. It can be all sorts of things because there's no rules. And when I do it, I'm called a convener, not even a facilitator. But a convener, I just convene, invite the people together, and that's my role. I can play a kind of interventionist role, but it's according to my judgment, and I say, well, this is because anybody could take this role. It's not strictly true, but it's sort of true. But then, you see, in front of that, it's a wonderful constructive primal experience of the unknown. You don't know what you're going to talk about. You don't know what the rules are, and you don't know what it is, and so a lot of people get very upset, withdrawal.
But do you think that's because they feel like they've suddenly been thrown in and they just want to be led, they just want to be talked to, lectured at, which is not doing anything for themselves then?
Well, I would say people like something to imitate, something. You know, show me how to do it and I'll do it, but you say, well, I can't, because each person. So this is extremely, a wonderful process, which it's up to the individual to respond, but you truly have to act as an individual, because there is no group pattern they can imitate, you see, at all. It just has to be an individual. So some people have taken to it very well, and others still go. And this is Margit one time with the group she was dealing with. One of the meetings I just broke it up. I said, this is the worst dialogue group I've been in my life. They just, which is, as a convener, it was almost verboten to do that. I should accept everything that happens. But the funny thing is, you know, in this because you haven't had experience, it's difficult to explain, but a group is wandering on, and somebody says, I find what's going on boring. Now, originally as a convener, my instinctive reaction is, oh God, I don't like that person, because it's been critical. Then they find, but I can suspend it, because that's the inner work of dialogue, to suspend reactions and hold them. And for me, it's a concentrated form of all this bearing the unpleasant manifestations of others, and we want to practice it, years of practice. And you then follow it up. And nearly always this is a turning point. But the person who said about it, you see the point, they've got to be genuine. They've got to be genuinely pissed off or fed up. Because somebody doing something genuine produces the elixir.
It's doing something, yes.
It's doing something.
Yes.
You don't care whether it looks negative or positive, whatever it is, you know.
But it's something that's happening.
Something that's happening then. And that's the hard thing to get people to do, especially in forced away groups. You go ratting about. When I was in the movements class this morning, and I go, and they're again talking about their experiences, what happened to them. And I say, what's happening to you now? Because you can see the process is so fascinating. They're avoiding what's happening now. They don't realise it's the only thing they have.
It's the most important thing. That's what Gurdjieff was on and on about, wasn't it?
Yeah,
now is the moment.
So, cut a long story short again, about the dialogue was a way of encountering, I call really direct work on oneself like nothing else. But to cotton onto it, you can't, well, it's like you lead a horse to water, you can't make it drink, it's that sort of thing. But so I just try to advocate. But that's one way I went, because I recognized in the whole tradition with Bennett on the nature of these groups was, I think, as far as they're concerned, a dead end. They're sort of nice, they're nice people, they talk together, but it becomes more or less, and it's not to knock it, a kind of social gathering. It's nice, and also people are just grateful to have somebody to talk to about things which interested them, and most of the night they don't, so there's all these positive things. But I see there's nothing ever getting anywhere. It's in plateaus and this kind of thing. The only hope is, you know, get some new disruptive people in, or some, you know, something like that. But then it raises the thing: what the hell do? You know, these standard groups. I had to say, well, I don't really know.
So you carried on looking for other people outside of the Bennett work and outside of the Gurdjieff work.
Oh yeah,
just
as much
to see
as possible.
what else was out there.
But also going, back with the Bennett people and exploring with them, because I brought, some of them, and I brought this process of dialogue into some of these groups, and it took 3 years, 2 or 3 years, and then they began to see it, and that's made a change for them. So contributed in that way, but then you see it opens up to all kinds of things, and now add in here that you're not only talking about what happens after Bennett, but many groups, what happens after their main leader was gone. You see, and a lot of them have turned to Sufism or Vedanta, Tibetan Buddhism, all these different ways they've followed. And why? Whereas,
is it because you think they found the one that's, even though they wanted to carry on the Bennett work, he's not there anymore, so they've gone and found something that would suit them on their own path, that would suit them, like some people like Buddhism, some people like Sufism. There was no other Mr. Bennett to help them along. Because as you were saying earlier, he dabbled a bit in everything, didn't he?
yes.
So they all had got a little taster session of everything.
So, let me reflect a moment.
Did you meet Idries Shah?
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yes, a little. I very much enjoyed Idries Shah.
I watched some of his shows on YouTube. They put a lot of his old shows up, and I found him, because I'd only read a couple of his books.
They've got
So it was
shows on
interesting.
YouTube.
Yeah, his actual shows he made back in the 70s are on YouTube. So it's interesting to see him. A lot of them were all, like, I suppose, sociological documentaries on how in the 70s people were bringing their children up, and how schools worked and things like that. So it wasn't programs on the Gurdjieff or the work or Bennett himself.
Not apparently so.
No.
That's what attracted me. Like, he was very interested in methods of problem solving and the mental blocks on which people have about solving problems, because it's a very practical thing. That was one thing, wasn't it? And also there's connection with people like Doris Lessing, the most marvelous woman novelist, and Ornstein, the psychologist, and even for a time he's with the, what's it called now, the Italian job, something like that. It was the 70s, a big thing when they talking about the resources of the planet running out, and he was involved with them, and people have forgotten about it now, but very important at the time. And so he had this quite different canvas, and also his teaching stories as a method. He was so much appreciated that, as you know, they gained through humour and satire, and they have that side of intellection in about reverse causality, things are not what they seem, and unanswered questions, puzzles built into these stories, and inverse logic and whatever it was, and it's just some of them so stunningly amazing, which is, as I Shah doing something with quite a different way, but same in some ways that Gurdjieff did, with his stories about, the red peppers and the Dover's powders, and they tend to be a bit more long-winded than Shah's, but you can see it because he came out of the Near Eastern tradition, and he seeped in it, and it's a way of dealing with things we didn't have in the West. So that was it, and also about the sociology. I mean, Shah was into this motivation. He talked a lot about secondary motivation. People join groups because they're lonely.
Yes, I see that in a lot of groups. I can see why people join things, because they are lonely, but they're trying to find out why they don't fit in, why everybody around them's got lots of friends and they haven't, so they go and look for other spiritual answers.
Yeah, there's a side to it too. I mean, it is quite true.
But hopefully from that, then they learn to discover, to look inside and find themselves inside.
And Shah Bennett, to interrupt you there, he had this very primal principle about learning how to learn. That was a big thing for him. You know, he published his book, which really disturbed Bennett, which is mostly consists of blank pages. The book Learning How to Learn, you know.
No, I didn't know that one. I've not heard of that one.
Oh, right. Well, that was like, if anything, his great song. He said it's nonsense. People around say, "Oh, I want to learn how to develop or do this or improve myself." It's just complete rubbish, because they don't know how to get to the starting block, first step. And this ties in with his work on problem solving. They say the message, you have to go backwards to a stage when you can really change something significant. But people are screwed because they think they are somewhere and want to add to it. And that very thing, which also is a Gurdjieff thing, because people believe they are conscious, they won't work for consciousness.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Of course, you've got it, why work for it?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Huh?
They're disillusioning themselves again.
Absolutely. So Shah had this as well, about learning, and I really took it to heart. I mean, it's been very primary for me. And you can't add on to what's corrupt. It's so you got to, you know, in a mystical sense, of course, you get this. We talk about corruption. It's strong there, and purgation. How to purgate until you can get the illumination. Otherwise, you can go really badly wrong. But anyway, the principle is there, and he again brought all of that in. And remember, of course, it's a bit of showmanship from Shah and Bennett on a platform, and there was the Institute members, and they were like not quite a double act. Well, again, like chalk and cheese, because he was the hipster, so to speak, and
Bennett would be old school, wouldn't he?
The old school. Bennett lied to him because I think some of the members also said, "Have you done yoga or something like this?" And of course, I said no, but Bennett also said no, but it's a lie, because Elizabeth had photographs of him. He took photographs of himself doing yogic postures, and she used to look at it, because shown to me, so Mr. Self-Love. And he was really like this, you know, oiled, you know, smiling in these postures. But he wouldn't admit it in public, with Idries Shah that he'd done this kind of thing.
Oh, that would have been quite funny in them days. Someone needs to write a biography of them two.
Oh. Yeah, and Shah did a great service to Bennett, I think, in some ways, being so naughty with him, you know, that Bennett got fed up eventually, so stuff this for like, I'm going to be my own man now. But going back to what happens, I mean, this is where we come up to all kinds of changes, and I've taken, I would send you this, as far as I haven't sent you already. And in a way, it's not an easy read, but it takes some absorption, and I only found a few people who are giving it about 70 or 80 pages. It takes it from 1960 to the present day. Well, one of the themes to thread it together I took was, you know, my starting point with him was when he was accepting the receptive lines of work, which I believe we talked about the last time. And then, which was, you know, people remarked made quite an amazing difference to his character and the way he behaved and so on. It changed his manner. Well, it also had, at the same time, he joined the Catholic Church, which upset a whole other bunch of people. He was very good at upsetting people. Okay. And for me, I took this to mean this is his recognition of the supernatural. The supernatural is what's truly spiritual. And he was always very careful about these things, like Subuh, which we mentioned briefly last time. He said this is a natural energy there. And what's in the church is a supernatural energy. He was very keen on this distinction, so that towards the end, you know, it's one marvelous last lectures he gave, which I put in the book Sacred Influences, where he goes on about God and the work, and is the work God, and how can we understand these things anyway? because he was keen on, how can how can we understand these things and deal with them. That what is the work? When you used to say, do we talk about Mr. Work? Why do we talk about the work? So you began to look.
Did he discuss this with you as students?
Yeah. Oh yeah. We're going to talk about it. It was a marvelous time. It was in this course at Sherborne, which was the year before he died. We'd have these meetings, and he did it from time to time in his life. It was the best sessions, get together and say, well, what are we doing then? I mean, what's going on? What's the work, and how do you see it? And he works through all this stuff about his movements, his doing an exercise, his what, blah blah blah, until what's stake, and he's saying, what is he? And he's worked with metaphors. You see, they work like climbing a mountain is like tending a garden, and who's the gardener, who's the owner of the garden, all kinds of subtle things based on these metaphors. He was very concerned with them. It was important with the work he's seen this week. And for me, I just confess it straight off, I tend myself to identify the work with the Holy Ghost. But he never, it's very strange, he just inched around this issue, because it was a very real issue for him. He took theology seriously, and there's hardly anybody today who takes theology seriously. I just think it was just these wankers in ancient times, these dirty old white guys who just were squabbling about meaningless words. But no, they were really concerned with matters of life and death, and he was too. But he left us. He left with that puzzle. What is the work? And I don't know if you've looked at the thing I put together, which I think is the best raw document, the Sevenfold Work. Did you ever look at that, the Sevenfold Work?
No.
Based on these conversations he had with us, these students, and which there's one wing which is the active lines of work, another wing is the receptive lines of work, but in the middle, the reconciling lines of work, he calls this manifestation. And that, for him, I think was the touchstone. He wanted to directly deal with this conundrum, you see, about you don't have to have the language and the name of the work to be in the work. You really don't, and he was very, very keen on that. And even pointing out sometimes it's a barrier.
Mm-hmm.
But what is it? He said, for him, and this is a background, thinking and attitude of if anything is like a tradition, and the Gurdjieff tradition is this, and this is connected in a way with the Near Eastern Sufism and so on. This practicality and this concern with doing. So for Bennett, the manifestation was the perfection of doing, and that was he said that was his best definition. So he said, and it doesn't matter. He gave the example of a woman who was hosting a dinner party, or an actor playing Hamlet.
Because they're doing that role
at
that time.
And there's like that lovely phrase of Shivapuri Baba, there's neither omission nor commission.
Neither omission nor commission.
You don't leave anything out and you don't put anything superfluous in.
Mm-hmm.
This is how you used to train children, give them an errand to do. And if you've ever done this, you already had this experience, you've asked them to shop for something for you. How many times do they ever get it right?
Not often, but
Not
yeah.
often. There's put something in which is irrelevant, or they don't forget something. I mean, it's a pointer to what's very important. The real spirituality is precise,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely precise. You see, and of course you don't do it by agonizing about it and making lists and all that sort of thing. But it comes. I mean, that's why the sense is always miraculous, and he was very insistent on it, as I said about the. I don't know when I said it about this. And I'll repeat it anyway. And he started contrasting himself with Gurdjieff, and I always give this example of him saying what Gurdjieff said: "Man doesn't have an eye, but can get one. But I, Bennett, say, man doesn't have an eye, and he cannot get one." And he always said, for him, self-remembering was this ridiculous phrase, because it had nothing to do with remembering, and nothing to do with self. For him it was self-losing, you know. And I have sort of picked up on that when I'm putting this, a lot of this stuff is in that wonderful book, The Way to Be Free, I put together. And I came across this stuff, I looked at it, I said, my God, why aren't people running through the street shouting, you know, coming across this thing? Well, it's really amazing what he was touching upon. But it's getting, but I was trying to say what was the state was getting out of the natural world, so to speak, into the supernatural world, and it was in a way a divergence from Gurdjieff. I mean, Gurdjieff would only kind of indirectly point to it. Like he was used phrases like, you must do everything you can and just say, God have mercy.
And always say your prayer before, isn't it? Ask the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost.
Yeah, all that kind of thing. And you say, well, is he just playing lip service? And sometimes you feel he is, and we don't quite know how strong it was. But Bennett was absolutely real, right? Because he understood you cannot do, and you go wrong if you start acting as if you're God. But he, like many people, he thought he could be, it's possibly could be quite friendly with God. You know, it's not such a thing up there. So, well, this plunges us into all kinds of unknowns. And what do we do as a practice? That's why I myself got more interested now in contemplation rather than the inner exercises alone with Bennett, you know, to do with the sensation blending of energies and all kinds of structured processes and so on, you know, which are very active techniques which he developed, and I'm no interest in them anymore. Because I really feel this, so I got this, my mythical narrative about it all. Remember, it is a mythical, it's a made-up story, it's not true or anything like this. Bennett, I met him at the time, he was turning into embracing the receptive lines of work, and he opened the way to the third, the reconciling lines of work. And this is what is there, and so I'm beginning to meet people now who know this, and it's a kind, feels to me as like it's very, very different. It's something in which, you know, it's just, I'm making a gesture with my hand like flicking away, it's
like dismissing it.
And it's like this, you don't have to, it's like not bothering with meditation and this kind of stuff, or in a lot of the practices. And there's a kind of possibility of directness, and I can see, well, for me, but it's only me and my life experience and the knowledge and my connection with various people, which I can say is like this. So everybody's got to find their own recipe, you know, at the end of the day. It's the distillation, bringing together of all these elements which cook, and then they come something which is direct, and it gives this particular thing. And the only word I know for it is confidence. It's Ben was very keen on it. He said with Gurdjieff, like he said it's not like Gurdjieff was certain about what he was doing, but he was confident. It meant that if he did something wrong, he could correct it. I know you get the feel of that, you know.
And people follow people that are confident.
Well, that's true. That's
charisma, because Gurdjieff had charisma as well.
Well, yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, for themselves, this is, I think, to share. Then it's like I come, and I know we're running out of time now. This might seem absurd and ridiculous, even bad thing to say to people. To say, okay, Debbie, from now on, accept you have your own eye, and just get on with it, will you, dear?
And it's just as easy as that.
As easy as that, because it really is. And I've heard people all the time say, like, it's very easy, just do it. And you go, oh yeah, it's easy for you to say, but it's not, you know. And the reason that when you say that, or I've said that, is that I'm clinging to these efforts which make me seem important. And the last thing I want to admit is that's really very easy. I'm just being stupid and not doing it. I want to make all the fuss because it means that shows that it's very difficult, and that's why I'm taking so long getting with it. You see what I mean?
Right, yes. You really should just be doing it and getting with it.
Getting with it. There's no problem. Everybody knows what it is to be awake. Everybody knows how to have an own eye. And I've taken a lot from Bennett, not to be meeting, but things he's written. Another thing, and I mentioned it, was in the long talk presented to the All and Everything. I didn't mention it particularly.
The conference this year.
At the conference, when I did a shortened version, but it stuck in me, and I went back to Bennett's preface to the third series, which he wrote when he was trying to get it published to support the family, and then the foundation stepped in to do their version to prevent him doing his and supporting the family. But he wrote this preface, and he said, the first step, this is to paraphrase, so the first step is very easy, is to get your own eye. He said, then it gets interesting, he says. And I thought, you what? Hang about, But I believe him, really. And so if you go on, as I come back to this competence, you find this competence which is not arrogance, which is not illusion, which is, I don't know.
It's not a false confidence either, is it? It's a confidence that they do know, they are following themselves.
I find it's a word, I don't know what it's made of, con, which is together dense fidelity, with authenticity, because it's like in a way you can sort of see one's life. Everyone's life is just like gives you time to fuck up about just about everything.
Yes.
Just blundering, and you look at yourself blundering around like insane bush baby. I don't want to call you.
Making excuses not to do anything.
Making excuses and making efforts the most stupid way to do, which could never work, and avoiding things which you can do easily, and all the rest of it, all that kind of thing. It's just, when you look at yourself, it's just mad. I'm sort of say something like just says, okay, but you can't. This is where the talk about God, it has some relevance, maybe just not suitable for some people. It's not absolutely necessary, but just because it's got to be something out of a relationship. You see, if you just do it yourself in an isolated sense, it's really fucked. It's bad, so for me, I've got these two components, as I try to do my best in conversation and dialogue, but also in my own contemplation. This where there is no barrier, there is just this pure relationship. You see, that's something. So that's my sort of story after Bennett, and for me, is the caravan is still on its way.
Still going along.
And
trying all the different paths.
But then all the paths you see are just, I hate to say the same, because I hate saying that sort of thing.
Well, they're not the same, but they are all leading to the same destiny, aren't they?
Well, you see, this thing about leading, even for me, I didn't concern anymore with leading too, because since there's no tomorrow.
There's only the now.
Yes, anyway, talking with you, if I could begin to really appreciate what talking with you, that would be, that's everything. Because it's not because I don't control you, I'm not inside you, have the same bodies, and that's the miracle, that's the blessing. Because you're not me. Well, that's the kind of thing we have amplified. Well, if I blurt about this a bit, the kind of God thing, it's just the otherness of this complete goodness and so on, which you put into words. These are abstract, grand words, but no, it's because for me, they have to be tied together. The otherness of the other person, and you embrace it. It's the same nature as the relationship with God. It's all in relationship, you see. This is what's beginning to get me. And so it can be then in everything you do. What's the point of doing an exercise or anything like this? Go and look at Giacometti. The moment of contacting Giacometti, it's Giacometti. It's not the work or the consciousness or something. It's this man
Which is the artist that Tony went to look at today, just for the viewers to know why you brought him in.
Oh yeah, at the Tate Modern, I was just blown away. I just absolutely, this gorgeous, and this, well, I take it as this kind of joyful, I was feeling this scintillating, joyful intelligence going through everything he did, which is just like, I was going, wow, 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 this kind of thing, yeah. So that's the perfection of doing, and he was into it. And so this is, I knew with the puzzle then, Debbie, about all this, is like the, in a way, the work as such, I could put it this way and then apologize afterwards, so it leads you to seeing that the the work itself is empty, it doesn't mean anything. But what a great accomplishment. You see,
But you want to make it something for yourself then?
No, there's no it anymore. That's the thing, there is no it. No need to codify it, Mr. Mr. Work, or just
It's doing it and being it.
yeah. Well, you've got an it in there, I guess.
Oh yeah, sorry. Doing and being.
yeah. You see, it's possible because I think this is why I hope to continue to make a contribution. It's just, they call it purifying the dialect of the tribe. Doing to improve terminology. Most people will regard this as superficial and irrelevant, but for me, it's not. I'm really honest with love. I really believe to speak and describe things in a different way, you become different. If you go on speaking, describing things in the old way, you never can become different.
Yeah, because you're not understanding what you're saying or why you're saying it, or getting it across in the right context. Much more than that. It's this kind of casual phrase. You're actually creating the world. With your mind is creating the world. It's also diabolic and wrong, but it's why I'm very interested in modern, the 20th century, at least now 21st century, thinking about this. Because strangely enough, what's called cybernetics or feedback system is where they have a lovely phrase about observer participants. There's this conjunction you can only know by entering the game, entering the fray. And what makes it real is you can do something. Taking part.
You're taking part. You become a part of, and so the part of you is both surrender and command at the same time. What we're doing is like with you, we're creating something, a recording, a meeting, you see. Couldn't do without you, you couldn't do without me. So we have something.
And we couldn't do without the audience.
With the audience.
It's free.
That's right, you could all try it. Yeah, that's right, that's good. Yeah.
And I've seen what the time is actually. We really need to bring it to a close, to be honest. But
I thought we were getting down
to the end. Is there any last comments you have to say about? Or is there anywhere where, if someone was interested in coming to any of your seminars or your workshops, is there a website or an email they can contact you on?
Yes, it's trying to build it up. I have about information about things that we need to do it on my Facebook account. It's there to some degree on a website, which is www.duversity.org, which is on there, and also there's my own email, and if you write to me I can put you on an email list, but we're trying to get a bit more with it in terms of making information available, especially encouraging people to become subscribers and pay us some money to keep the thing going.
So people that are listening, have a look at Tony's website. And Tony, you've got quite a few books that are available on all various book websites.
Yes, on Amazon.
Amazon, yes. Available in paperback. Are your books on Kindle? Are they e-books? Some are, right? So you can also look on your...
The Gymnasium book on intelligence is Kindle, and the dialogue book is on Kindle. And the Enneagram book is on Kindle, I think. Yes, but I'm doing a new edition of the Enneagram book.
Oh, yeah,
But soon I'm going to get an all singing, all dancing kind of place on the web, and I got all these recordings I've done, you know, this kind of thing.
yeah, you've been working on loads for the last few years, I know of, yeah.
A long time,
Yeah,
from I started way back in the 90s, you know, this kind of thing. But this famous last words I know, there's like little things like keep on trucking, and
don't give up.
don't give up, and you're already there but you don't know it yet. Now soon come now and reduce to platitudes. I think the platitudes and all the well-known sayings contain all the cosmic truths you need. What is that funny squeaking
I think
noise?
it's a squeaky noise from outside.
Yes,
It's
it
either a
is.
ghost on a swing,
Or it could
but
be a
it-
ghost on the swing or
Yeah.
somebody's bicycle.
but
Well,
I'm
that
sure.
shows us we've got to stop, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's
Anyway,
what God's
bless you
telling us.
for making this possible, and it's been absolutely gorgeous.
Oh no, bless you. Thank you for doing it, Tony.
Oh.
And thank you everybody for listening. I know the squeaking has stopped. But I should press stop on the recorder.
Have you got any famous last words?
Stay calm and meditate. Stay calm and do the work. I don't know.
Or
Somebody stop some WD-40 on the squeaking outside.
that would be that's what Shazam will do it there. Or anything. You just never know.
That's it. Thank you everybody, and thank you Tony.